question I had was, what was the year of your graduation from MIT, and did you get a PhD?
No, it's a master's degree.
Just a master's.
The year, what was the year of graduation? Probably 82, because I think I left there.
Went to Los Alamos?
I went to Los Alamos.
Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT and Caltech?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and Hosefield was another.
Hosefield?
Hosefield. Hoshsfield or something along those lines.
Would they remember you?
Oh yeah, Hosefield I know well. Oh sure, I've got people that that I went to school with, and George Knapp has spoken to some of them.
I certainly have trouble with Bob's claimed credentials at schools. He had claimed to have degrees from MIT and Caltech. Now I've talked to people who saw him at Caltech, but there's no records there. I think it is entirely possible that he would exaggerate his educational background in order to get a great job. He wouldn't be the first person to do that. He wouldn't be the first person to lie about his background and education in order to get a good job. And you have to wonder, well, wouldn't the people who hired him know that? And yeah, they would have to. They do a background check. They'd have to know that.
Robert Scott Lazar, supposedly a nuclear physicist with a master's in physics from MIT, a master in electronics from Caltech, who supposedly worked at Area 51, back engineering flying saucers, figured out how they work using element 115. It's a long, detailed story. You can buy the video someplace else, not from me. I did a lot of checking on Bob. I tried to meet with him twice. I was supposed to on one occasion, and he didn't go along. I checked at MIT. I checked at Caltech. Neither one ever heard of them. Well, but the government wiped his records clean is the response. I talked to the legal counsel at MIT. No way to do that. I talked with the guy who has the degrees, the commencement lists and all that sort of thing. No mention of Lazar. None of the yearbooks show Lazar. You need it for a master's thesis. For a master's degree, you need a thesis. I talked to the guy who holds those. No Lazar item there. He was asked publicly, when did you get your master's from MIT? Well, let me see now. I think it was, probably 1982. I have friends who went to MIT. I was accepted there myself, couldn't afford to go out of high school. And nobody who gets a master's degree in physics from MIT doesn't know what year he got it in. He was asked to name some of his professors. Well, let's see now. He named somebody, somebody, I won't use his name on the air. I checked on him. It was not a common name, fortunately. He was a physicist. The only trouble is, Bob said he would remember him from Caltech. This individual, Bill, never taught at Caltech. He only taught at Pierce Junior College. Now, Bob himself had mentioned Pierce to me on the phone. He did go there. Now, that's in Southern California, and he was going there at the same time that he was supposedly attending MIT, 2,500 miles east of there. One heck of a commute. If you can go to MIT, you don't go to Pierce Junior College. But beyond that, I checked with his high school. He finished in the bottom third of his high school class. You can't get into MIT if you're outside usually the top 10, 15, 20% of your class. Bottom third, never. His element 115 scheme won't work. Sounds good, science fiction. So, I checked with Los Alamos. He is in the phone book there. Doesn't that prove that he was a scientist working there? No, it certainly doesn't prove he was a scientist, but if you look at the phone book page, up at the very top it says, this phone book for employees of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the Department of Energy, Kirk-Meyer Corporation, several other companies. Right after Bob's name, and it was only in one phone book issue, they issue them every several months, it says K/M, that's Kirk-Meyer, a subcontractor. He worked out at the Maison facility. Don't need a clearance for that. People come in from all over the world, physicists, to do experiments, and he was a technician working out there. And the story goes on beyond that. And I get people telling me, well, I don't see why you don't believe him. He seems so sincere. Sincerity is not a check on truth.
According to Bob Lazar, now this is his claim, he has a master's degree in physics from MIT and also a master's degree in electronics technology from Caltech. He has never produced his original master's degree from either MIT or Caltech. He's never produced it. It's a no-show. There's nothing there. He's never been able to produce the original master's degree. And every effort to locate those degrees has completely failed, including the research by Stanton Friedman. Also, I've got a copy of the MIT yearbook during the early 1980s. Stanton Friedman did a very investigative search of the early 80s yearbooks. There's nothing there. There's no name, there's no picture. He doesn't appear in any of the yearbooks. So that's a red flag that we need to look at. I've got a letter here to John Andrews from Robert Kiesler, dated March 19th, 1990, talking about his efforts to find Bob's magnetohydrodynamic master's thesis from MIT. And it says, "Dear Mr. Andrews, I am sorry we are unable to locate a copy of Mr. Robert Scott Lazar's thesis on MHD in our facility." Let's review this. According to Lazar, then, the government not only wiped out his degrees, both degrees, they wiped out all of the yearbooks. So in essence, they had to crawl up into the dusty ceiling attics of all the graduates from MIT and steal the yearbooks out. And then they also scrubbed his magnetohydrodynamic master's thesis. It's completely gone from every repository. That just doesn't sound logical or reasonable to me, if he's telling the truth.
It was 1990. I was working at CNN, and I was a producer, and I got a call in Atlanta at CNN at my office from Bob Lazar. And he said, we're going to be doing something on Memorial Day here. If you can get here, we'd like to have you come and be part of the festivities, and we can talk about, by then it had been very controversial, about whether or not Bob Lazar with John Lear, had Bob Lazar been telling the truth about going to Area 51, working for EG&G, all of that. So I went to Las Vegas, met with all of those guys, and was able to spend a lot of time on that Memorial Day weekend, and I believe it was 1990. And here is the moment of talking with Bob Lazar that is indelible in my mind. He was showing me in his kitchen how he ran this film for the real estate offices that he worked for, filming houses. And he was in the process of demonstrating how he was doing that, just to show me that this is what he did. And he had told me that when Stanton Friedman had questioned him about the fact that he had no degree from MIT, he said, "I never ever said I had a degree from MIT or anything like that." What happened, Linda, is I'm an adopted child, and my parents lived in Florida, and they didn't make much money. And I had gone to school with some buddies. We liked electrical things. We liked engineering. We liked taking cars apart. Some of my buddies got accepted to MIT. He said, I drove up to see them as my friends. And I went to one of their classes for a few days. He would just go and sit. And he said, and I learned some things. I became even more interested in having some kind of a career in which I would be dealing with electronic and engineering things. And he said, that's what I learned at MIT. I never told anybody I had a degree. That's Bob's firsthand version to me.
This is the most bothersome part of the story, and I've talked to Bob many times. I think we're friends. I have offered him the opportunity to tell me, Bob, did you exaggerate about your educational background? Because a lot of people do that. You know that in every walk of life, in every occupation, they would exaggerate something on a resume, and he's always stuck to it. As for professors, he gave me the name of one at MIT. I checked on that. The professor is not there now. Whether he was there then, when Bob says he went there, MIT will not give me that information. I do have one person who says he went to school with Bob, or at least was aware that Bob was going to classes at Caltech. His name is Jim Tagliani. He was a technician in the stealth fighter program here in Tonopah, Nevada. He worked with Bob in the early 1980s at a place called Fairchild Zincom Systems in Simi Valley. I have some documentation to back that part of it up, and he said he remembers Bob as working a lot of weird shifts to accommodate his classes there. The only record we can have for Bob Lazar ever in college is a single class in electronics at a junior college in California.
Right.
And you don't get hired at Los Alamos with that kind of an educational background.